James, Kobe Bryant, Kevin Garnett, and Tracy McGrady. I'm sure you've heard of some of these names, if not all of them. This is because all of these people are either current or former NBA All-Stars. All named All-Stars on multiple occasions, too. This is not the only similarity that these names have, though. They're also all drafted into the NBA right out of high school. These players all made significant impacts on their organizations. But what if Kobe Bryant had to wait a year before and never went to the Los Angeles Lakers? Or if LeBron was forced to go to college and couldn't get drafted by his hometown Cavaliers in 2003? The history of the league would be changed, no question. If a player with a lot of talent comes from high school today, they'd be unable to get drafted because of the NBA's rule that high schoolers cannot be drafted. This rule was implemented in 2005 and is known as Article X, or better known as the one and done deal, or rule. This is because players will now go to college just for 1 year, then enter the draft because that's when they are eligible. This rule has had much backlash and has caused much more negative effects than it has positive. This rule needs to change, and high schoolers need to be allowed to enter the NBA draft again. The first main reason that this rule needs to change is because this rule is overall not good for college basketball. No doubt, it's great to see some of the best young prospects playing college ball, and it makes March even more exciting, but they still don't make that much of an impact. Recent one-and-done players such as Jason Tatum, Ben Simmons, and Anthony Davis were great in their only year of college, but they'll never be remembered for what they did in college. Their one season in college seems more like an annoying pit stop than anything before going pro. The history of college basketball will never remember those types of guys. They don't make enough of an impact in one season. Instead, according to an article from USA Today College, the most popular players in college basketball were those who had long careers like Steph Curry of Davidson, Tyler Hansbrough of North Carolina, and J.J. Redick of Duke. There are a number of reasons these players are remembered more in college basketball. Primarily, it's because of the longevity of their careers. These players were remembered in multiple March Madness tournaments, not just one season. And those who do only stay for a year, if it wasn't for Article X, they probably wouldn't even have been on the team to begin with. Those who had longer careers also are more remembered in college basketball because of their passion. They have been around college basketball for more than just one season, and they have been there enough time to know that what's at stake every season and how much it means to them. Because of this, it seems these types of players give it all they have every single game, every single year. And that is why they are remembered. The one and dones, on the other hand, they, again, would probably not be at their university if not for Article X, so they don't seem to care as much. They certainly still play hard, but there's a noticeable difference without a doubt. On top of this, the one and done rule is also bad for college basketball because it interferes with the key components of the NCAA. These key components are the terms amateur and student athlete. Because high schoolers cannot immediately go pro, they typically pick a college to go to for a year. How do they decide which school to go to? Every college they're interested in will give them a free ride. So what becomes the deciding factor? Money. Ever heard of the saying that money is the root of all evil? Works in this case. We're now starting to see athletes getting paid extra money just to attend their universities. Most recently, it was discovered at the University of Arizona with DeAndre Ayton and at North Carolina State with Dennis Smith Jr. And these are just the cases that have been discovered. There are very likely many more cases of athletes getting paid to attend their universities, and by doing this, they are no longer amateurs by definition, as they are getting paid for their work. The NCAA prides themselves on amateurism, but thanks to the one-and-done rule, countless scandals have been happening, making the most elite college basketball players not true to the NCAA's definitions. The term student-athlete has also become suspect from the one-and-done rule. According to the article from USA Today College, they claim that, quote, because of this rule, the NCAA has drifted further than ever from the literal meaning of student-athletes, end quote. Now, high-profile basketball players are being treated as guests to the university rather than students. These players aren't at college to get an education. They're not there to be students. They are elite athletes that are going to turn professional. The explanation for Article X was to give players time to mature and give them insurance if their NBA careers didn't end up working out. How does 1 year and 30 credits help a person become ready for the real world, especially when they're taking the most basic classes the universities can offer? Another reason the NBA should change their rule is because the other leagues that draft high schoolers have a system that works. This is evident in both the MLB and the NHL. In the MLB, countless stars have been drafted from high school and made an impact. Some of the names of players drafted from high school include Mike Trout, Bryce Harper, and Clayton Kershaw. Similarly, in the NHL, high school prospects are drafted all the time, with the most well-known player being Sidney Crosby. In the 2010 NHL draft, a record 22 high schoolers were drafted. This system has been used by these leagues and has worked. And if prospects aren't ready for the teams, for the league, the teams they are drafted to will put them into their minor league affiliates to help them get ready, not force them to go to a year of college to develop. So we've seen it. It can work having players drafted out of high school. It does in the MLB, and it does in the NHL, and I would argue that it previously worked in the NBA. If you recall at the beginning of my speech, I listed a few NBA All-Stars that were drafted out of high school. That list does not even begin to represent all the players that were drafted out of high school that had a successful NBA career. There are many more All-Stars, and even more players that fit roles that had decent NBA careers. Yes, there were certainly players who did not exceed the expectations they had, but whose fault is that when the media is giving these players such high expectations? Also, are there not college busts that happen as well? The first pick in the 2013 NBA draft was Anthony Bennett, a one-and-done player who never averaged more than 6 points per game in the NBA. Spoiler alert, for the first overall pick in the NBA draft, that's really bad. Busts happen all the time. It is not necessarily to force these high school kids to wait a year to get drafted. The time period is insignificant in their development and will not change them dramatically. If a player was not cut out to be an NBA player from high school, they wouldn't be cut out after a year of college either. The biggest reason the one-and-done rule needs change, however, is because it doesn't take into account the interests of the players. Essentially, this rule puts the players' dreams on hold. They have been dreaming of playing in the pros since they were kids. Physically, they're ready. Mentally, they're ready. It's just Article X that's holding them back. It's gotten to the point that some players have been looking at other ways other than playing college basketball to achieve their dream. Darius Bazley, a top prospect out of high school, has decided to not attend college but instead enter the draft for the NBA's Development League, or better known as the G League. His reasoning to do this is because it will prepare him better for the NBA, better than a college environment can. In his Players Tribune article, he says, quote, "In the G League, every day I'm going to be competing with and against NBA talent. I'm going to learn NBA schemes, adopt an NBA practice schedule, and generally be in an environment where the main focus of everyone I'm around is competing at the NBA level." End quote. Sounds like his head's on straight. Sounds like he's prepared. And there's no question he's physically prepared. So why hold players like Bazley back? It's clear waiting a year is not what they want to do. The one-and-done rule also does not take players into account in the sense of what could happen in the time that they go to college. What would happen if a player gets injured while at college? Their shot at their dream could be ruined or greatly diminished, and it could have been avoided if they could have went to the draft right out of high school. Really what it comes down to is taking these players' dreams and unreasonably putting them on hold. Current NBA superstar Kevin Durant said, according to CBS Sports, that he would have probably skipped going to college at Texas and would have entered the NBA draft in 2006 because he needed the money. The NBA doesn't take into account what the players want in this rule. Their say is not valued, and this is something that needs change. So overall, Article X, which is stated as, according to ESPN, quote, "The player is or will be at least 19 years of age during the calendar year in which the draft is held. And with respect to a player who is not an international player, at least one NBA season has elapsed since the player's graduation from high school." End quote. This rule was implemented in 2005, even though the system seemed to work. This can be seen through star players who were drafted out of high school, like LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, and Kevin Garnett. In fact, high school draftees have been so successful that a study done by Case Western Reserve University showed that, quote, "The average high school player in the NBA averages more points, grabs more rebounds, and dishes out more assists than does the average NBA player or the average player of any age group in the NBA." Clearly, the system worked. Therefore, the logic that high school players need to mature is flawed, as they perform better statistically than non-high school draftees. So what can we do? The best option is to inform. Let people know about this rule and why it is flawed. Perhaps if people get a better understanding, change can be made. That is why I made this speech anyway. So inform others, let them know of the system's flaws, so we can someday see a change to this illogical rule. Thank you for your time.